Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Political Economy. My name is Dr. Powell, and I will be your instructor for this course. I'll tell you a little bit about myself first, and then we will go ahead and jump into the course, take a look at the syllabus and some of the topics we're going to be covering, as well as some of the assignments that you'll be doing, some of my expectations for you, and then some of your expectations that you can have from me as the instructor. So as I said, my name is Dr. Powell, and I teach on an adjunct basis here at Cal Baptist. My full-time gig, if you will, is at California State University, Long Beach, where I am the department chair and a full-time professor. I also run the MPA program, both the on-campus as well as the distance learning program at Cal State. I've been at Cal State Long Beach now. This is my 18th year. Prior to arriving in California, I taught for 1 year at a university in Florida in their MPA program and created an undergraduate political science program for them as well. And I started my career in Illinois at Eastern Illinois University, where I taught for 4 years in the Department of Political Science, teaching primarily public administration courses, a lot of public budgeting, a lot of personnel management. But I also taught American government, taught presidency, Congress, also taught the Model Illinois government course as well, and always every year took a Model Illinois government team to the state capitol for a competition, which is always a good, fun time. But that's my background. I have a PhD in political science from Miami. I have a master's degree in political science from Ohio, and a bachelor's degree in political science and history from a small college in the Cleveland, Ohio area called Baldwin-Wallace University. I live in Santa Clarita. In addition to my academic work, I also serve on a school board in the Santa Clarita area, and I've served on that board since 2014. I was reelected in 2016, and my current term is going to end in 2020. So that's a little bit about me. So I look forward to learning more about you as you post your introductions in the course room. But let me go ahead and just go through the syllabus relatively quickly and just introduce you to the course, some of the concepts that we'll be covering in the course. Now, again, this is MPA 585, which is political economy. You've already looked at the syllabus, and so you've read the course description. You're probably not new to the online learning environment at Cal Baptist, so you've probably been through that before, so I will save you going through that information. But as you can see on the screen in the syllabus, I've got my name, I've got my cell phone number on there. I also have my email address. My recommendation to you is if you need to contact me, either contact me through the classroom using the questions and answer forum that you will see in the classroom in a second, or use the email. I am very bad at voicemail, and even though that's my cell phone, I rarely answer my cell phone on the ring, so it goes to voicemail. And I'm really not good at all at getting back to you with voicemails. So if you really need to contact me, either through the classroom or using the email address at Cal Baptist. You also see there on the syllabus, this is a new version of this class that was just finished up a couple of weeks ago. And one of the nice things for you as a student is that we really reduced the reading material. I just felt that the reading material in the previous version of this course, it was just too much reading to do in a very limited period of time to actually acquire any real understanding of what was in the reading materials. And so instead what we've done is we've tried to truncate that down into one primary textbook. You'll see it's the Stiglitz and Rosengard Economics of the Public Sector text, should be available at the bookstore. You also see on the syllabus the course learning outcomes. One of the areas of my research agenda that I've been focusing on over the past 4 or 5 years has been the assessment of student learning outcomes. And so it's a big deal to me that a course has good, quantifiable, measurable outcomes, and I'm very happy to see that this course has those outcomes. But I won't waste our time going through them one by one, but you can read through those on your own. But again, they are good, quantifiable, measurable types of outcomes. I'm sure you're probably very interested in what type of work you'll be required to do over this term in this course. And so we've tried to list those in the syllabus for you as specifically as possible. You will have writing assignments. And so there are 3 writing assignments that are meant to reflect the reading assignments and the lectures and the videos that are provided for you in the course environment, and will hopefully allow you to apply some of what you have learned through those lectures and those videos to practical types of issues. The writing assignments, we do use APA in this course. I assume that you're familiar with using APA in some of your other courses, so that shouldn't come as a surprise for you. What may come as a little bit of a surprise for you is that I am not a major stickler, so to speak, when it comes to APA. I always tell my students that if it's in the ballpark of APA, if it looks and smells and feels like APA, it's probably close enough to APA for me. So I'm not going to deduct points if it's not in perfect APA compliance, but I assume you use APA frequently before. So I will expect that using APA won't be much of a burden or obstacle for you. But I just know that I'm not one of those sticklers like sometimes some instructors like to be. So you can just tuck that away as useful information as we move throughout the course. You know, the backbone of any online course really is interaction, not only between students and the instructor, but probably even more importantly, student-to-student interaction. And so like your other courses, you have discussion board assignments in this class. The discussion board assignments can take on a couple of different formats. Some are text-based discussion board assignments, and you have one of those in week 1. Some will be more multimedia types of discussion board assignments. And again, you've got one of those in week 1 as well, where you'll be creating a PowerPoint presentation and narrating that PowerPoint presentation. And so we kind of like to give you both the traditional text-based as well as the multimedia approach in your discussion board posts. I expect those discussion board posts will be well written, that they will be clear, and that they will appropriately and completely address the prompt that's provided for you in those discussion board forums. You have a journal assignment. There's one journal entry that you will be doing. This basically gives you the opportunity to reflect upon some of the material that you covered in the class. But again, that's just one of those journal assignments, more of a reflection type of an assignment. And then your big takeaway piece from this class, and I think all courses should have a takeaway type of assignment, that when you leave the course, you're able to take this with you and you're able to, kind of document what you have done in the course. And that's the critical assignment. And so the final report is going to draw material covered throughout the course and is supposed to give you the opportunity to find that nexus between theory that's covered in the text and covered in class and applying that theory in a more practical type of real-world economic setting. And so that's kind of your takeaway assignment. We're calling it the critical assignment or the final report. You'll see on the syllabus then on the screen, you've got your grades distributed. You have 1,000 points, and you can see each one of your written assignments are worth 100 points apiece, 3 of those, so 300 points for your written assignments. 75 points for each one of your discussion boards, and there are 6 of those, so 450 points for your discussion board. You have one reflective journal assignment worth 50 points, and then your critical assignment, your final report's worth 200 points, for a grand total of 1,000 points for the course. I'm very happy to see here at Cal Baptist that you use pluses and minuses. I like that. At Cal State, we don't do that. We just have the A, B, C, D. That's relatively difficult to administer at the graduate level because we tend to have some grade compression, much more so than what you would see at the undergraduate level. And so you tend to see grades that cluster in the A and B range. So I'm a big fan of the plus and minus system to try and, distinguish between someone who may be at a, 98% versus someone who's at a 92%. Absent those pluses and minuses, both those grades are counted the same as an A. So you're probably familiar with the grading scale. I tend to have my own personal variation on grading scales whereby I tend to provide 1 percentage point flexibility rule. So at the end of the course, if you are within 1% of a higher grade, you've done all the work in the course and given it what I like to call the good old graduate school try. then you will get that additional 1% bump up to the higher grade. But again, that 1% flexibility rule only applies if you have done all the assignments, you've participated in discussion board, and you've really been an active participant in the course. So what will we be covering and when will we cover it? Well, that is your course schedule. For this first week, we're focusing on the role and the size of the public sector. You have a PowerPoint annotated lecture, that narrated lecture that's provided for you in week 1. You have your reading assignments there. We also have a couple of videos up there for you to watch. And then you have your 2 discussion boards. You have your multimedia discussion board where you will be preparing a narrated PowerPoint presentation based upon the topic for your first discussion board. And we'll look at that in just a second. But for the first week 1 discussion board, the text-based assignment, it's just your traditional answering within the discussion forum. The multimedia, you're going to take that answer and then you're going to create a presentation out of it with a narrated PowerPoint presentation. So that's what we're looking at for week 1. Again, not a whole lot of reading, not a whole lot of work in terms of assignments, just to kind of get you started in the course. Week 2, we'll move into the fundamentals of welfare economics. You've got 3 chapters out of the main textbook. You then also have a narrated PowerPoint lecture, your videos. You have your first written assignment that is due next week as well on day 7, and then another multimedia discussion board. I should also point out to you some of the due dates for the discussion boards. Traditionally, what we will expect is that your initial post on the discussion board will be due by day 6, which translates into Saturday. And then the final day of the week, then you will have your responses that are due. Again, you're always welcome to post your initial posts and your responses earlier in the week. I always recommend that because the earlier you post, the more certain you are that you've got it done and that your schedule won't interfere with getting the work done. And it also affords your classmates a little bit of additional time to review what you have written and then respond to the points that you have made. Okay, week number 3, public expenditure theory. For this week, you're looking at chapter 6 through 9. You've got a PowerPoint lecture, videos. You kind of get the idea now. A written assignment, and then your multimedia discussion board. Week 4, we're going to do public expenditures in practice. Weeks 4 and 5. Week 6, taxation in theory. Week 7, taxation in practice. And then some further economic issues in our final week together in week 8. So that's kind of how the course is tracking and how it looks in terms of the topics that we'll be covering and when we'll be covering those topics. Do remember that this is a graduate program, and I always, when I start any MPA course, I kind of get up on my soapbox, if you will, and I like to kind of talk about how graduate MPA courses are both professional as well as scholarly. So as a graduate MPA course, we do have scholarly expectations, and those scholarly expectations are that the assignments that you submit will be of graduate level expectations, that they will be well written, they will adhere to APA format, that you will go beyond just a description of the material, and you actually get into an analysis and a synthesis of that material, which is expected at the graduate level. So we do have those scholarly types of expectations, but we also realize that an MPA program is an applied program. It is a professional program. So we also need to always keep our eye on the nexus between the theories that are presented in the classroom and the real world, and how we can take those theories and find applications for those theories in the real world of public administration and in the public sector. And so that's kind of that professional element. So it's both scholarly as well as professional. I do recommend that you stay active in the classroom and do all the discussion boards and check into the class on a very frequent basis. There is a late penalty of 10% for each day, each 24-hour period that an assignment is late. I do understand that you have other obligations outside of the classroom, and I'm very understanding and empathetic with that. So if for some reason you have something that comes up in your personal or spiritual life that takes precedence, I certainly understand that. All I ask is that you just send me an email or contact me through the questions and answers form in the course room so I know about that ahead of time. Because as long as I know about it ahead of time, we'll certainly be able to make provisions to avoid a late penalty. Clearly, the honor code is extremely important. And so it's important that you abide by the university's principles and rules regarding academic honesty. I'll leave that there because I don't think I need to go into that much more than just that. Any student who has any type of documented disability, please do contact the coordinator of disability services and then let me know. And I'm always happy to make reasonable accommodations. I've been a full-time faculty member for going on 23 years now, and I always tell my students I have never rejected any reasonable accommodation that's been presented to me by a student. So that, in essence, in a nutshell, that's your syllabus. Let me go ahead and take a look at some of the learning activities. And we'll just look at week 1 right now because, again, I don't want to belabor this and make this video too long for you. It's just an introduction. So you'll see for week 1, your agenda's there. We already talked about that. Then we also have the question and answer form that you're probably familiar with in some of your other courses. And so if you have any questions or comments or things like that, feel free to post those in the question and answer forum. We also have a video up there on how to create a multimedia discussion board. So that's there for you as well, just to refer to. We also have a video there, Introduction to Economics, to kind of serve as a primer, if you will, so that we can all kind of start on the same basic level and we're all on similar footing starting the course. Specialization in trade video for you, economic systems and macroeconomics video. And then your first 2 discussion board assignments, your week 1 multimedia discussion board, again, giving you directions in terms of creating this multimedia type of presentation. And then your text-based discussion board. And for your text-based discussion board, you're going to be responding to the prompt after completing the reading assignments and watching the videos. Please informally survey a minimum of 3 friends or family members and ask them 3 questions. Now, this is very informal. This is of friends and family members. And so I don't want you to do any type of a full-blown survey that will require institutional review board approval. That's well beyond the scope of this course and well beyond the time frame we have allotted for the course. So this is just kind of a anecdotal type of sense you get from a few people that you know. You can chat about the questions over dinner or coffee, just try to get a sense of how they view government intervention in the economy. So answers to questions such as, do they feel the federal government impacts the economy in a positive or negative way? We will talk in this class about the different ways in which the federal government can impact the economy. And we'll talk about discount rates. We'll talk about reserve requirements. We'll talk about credit requirements and all the different ways in which, especially the Federal Reserve, can control monetary and really fiscal policy as well in the U.S. Federal government has much more control over impacting monetary and fiscal policy than would a state or local government. And so what we're trying to get here is just a sense of how they feel about how the federal government impacts the economy and whether they think federal government intervention in the economy is a positive or a negative. Do they believe in truly a free hand of the economy where there's really no role for government to play, or should there be some type of a limited role for government in regulating the economy? Answer to the second question, how do they think we should decide which activities should be done by government and which should be done by the private sector? We will cover information on different types of goods and services, public goods versus private goods, and then the manifestations of those in that gray area in between. Whether a good has chargeability, whether a good has the ability to exclude people from partaking in that good, whether or not a good is exhaustible, that people are rivals, that one person uses it means it's not left for another person to use. Those types of things with chargeability, excludability, exhaustibility, those are kind of the characteristics we tend to look for in determining whether a good is a public good or is a private good or is it somewhere in the middle. how we define goods and services will tell us a lot about the quote unquote proper role of government in those activities and in those goods and services. The more private sector components or characteristics a good will have, chances are the less federal government intervention or even state or local government intervention we would expect in the provision and or production of that good or service. The more public sector components and characteristics a good will have, the more we expect the government to get involved in provision and or production. So it really, my favorite answer to most questions and most courses I teach, which really drives students crazy, is it depends. And so don't be alarmed if you ask me a question, you get a response that says, well, it depends. Here it depends upon the characteristics of the good in determining how extensive the role of the federal government really should be. And, again, here, this question, we're using the word should. Anytime we use the word should, we are making in philosophy what we call a normative argument. Normative arguments are ought and should. So what ought the federal government do? What should the federal government do? And so you're just kind of collecting some anecdotal opinions from folks about how extensive they think the role of the federal government really should be in provision and production of goods. And we'll talk later on about the main difference between provision and production and how those two concepts are related, but yet still different from each other. And then you'll gather some opinions about this third question. Do they feel the federal government should intervene more or less in the economy, and why? Again, getting at that question of just how involved the federal government should be in economic activity. So you'll post your findings from each one of your interviews. What insights did you gain from the conversations? Were their views in line with the study of economics that we covered in class this week? Why or why not? And then again, if you are using information beyond just these interviews, but you're using information from textbooks or you're using information from journal articles, please be sure to cite that information appropriately using APA format. It's very, very important to do. So that's your initial posting in this text-based discussion board. Then you'll also be responding to 2 other students to offer additional insights or resources or anything that will help deepen the analysis that they provided in their initial discussion board posting. So that is the idea behind the discussion boards. And so that's what you'll be doing this week. So primarily the 2 main things that you'll be providing to me will be your text-based discussion board posting and then the multimedia PowerPoint presentation that you are preparing for your multimedia discussion board for the week. And so that's for week 1. I won't go into the future weeks. We can do those as those weeks come along. What you'll see I usually do is at the end of the week, I will put together kind of a summation type of video, and I'll present that to you in the course room where I will sum up some of the important topics that we covered for the week and then do a quick introduction into the topics that we'll be covering for the following week. And so I'll usually have that done by the following Monday to get us going then for the upcoming week. So that's kind of what the syllabus looks like. That's what week 1 looks like. That's who I am. So I hope you found this video somewhat useful. If you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, email is always superior to voicemail for me. I usually check my emails at least once or twice a day and should be able to get back to you at the longest within 24 hours. So that's that. I look forward to working with all of you over the next few weeks. I hope you enjoy the class. I hope you get something out of the course. And I hope that it's useful to you in your career and your profession. So I look forward to working with you, and I wish you all a very good term. Take care.